Hello and welcome back to another episode. And I thought today we would talk a bit about these. Now, I'm not talking about the microphone that's inside them. We've done a few videos in the past on shotgun microphones of different shapes, sizes, prices. And I don't want to bore you with that again. But over the past couple of weeks, one of my regulars was asking about replacement housing for his. And I sort of offered to see if I could find a cheap Chinese one. And to cut a long story short, yep, I found one and it's okay. So I thought today we'll have a look at the sort of problems of what exactly these things are, how they're put together, and what you could be letting yourself in for if you buy a cheap one. Now, the real point of these things is to keep wind. Now that's like wind as in really, really strong wind, right through to light breezes away from the microphone inside. And shotgun microphones themselves are extremely prone to wind noise. The main reason for this is that the design of a shotgun microphone tends to have these slots that run along both sides of the microphone. Now, if you look at most of the common shotguns of pretty well all makes, you'll find that's a common trait. It's called an interference tube. And essentially it gets its directional properties from sounds coming from end on axis with them, cancelling by virtue of the sideways energy that appears. Two things getting together, they interfere with each other, and the net result is that any sound coming from the sides is greatly reduced. End on, straight in and straight up to the mic element at the end. So it's a sort of destructive type of science that's behind them. There are a couple of makes that still appear from time to time that use two capsules. Now, they're not really interference tube mics at all. They're working the same way that a large format microphone does, and they switch the microphone element in, out, in phase, out of phase, and they can actually create a very directional pattern by using two capsules. But the vast majority, one capsule down this end, long tube, sound comes in that way. Fairly straightforward. Now, the byproduct is, of course, wind is also energy that comes in the side. And that is not coming in mainly from the front. So the interference tube that's so good at sort of nulling out unwanted sideways stuff actually lets wind in perfectly, because there is no corresponding wind popping in the end. And it's sort of an unbalanced system. Much more wind, hardly any wind. Two things just don't cancel. And in actual fact, they sort of seem to work in reverse. A microphone of this kind, in a light breeze, sounds like a hurricane. If you stuck an ordinary microphone outside in that same breeze, you wouldn't actually hear very much of it at all. It'd be much more gentle. So windshields for these have to be bigger. Now, there's a lot of ways you can go about that. And the common one nowadays is not foam. Foam is it's okay, but foam windshields for these, which a lot of them actually come with, which is ironic, isn't it? They supply it with a windshield that's sort of okay-ish. Even a 416 comes with a foam windshield that you can stuff on the end, stick the mic up the end, and it reduces a little bit, but it doesn't do a particularly good job. And that's why you see so many using big housings like this. Probably we ought to have a look at the big housings first and then discuss a little bit about how the things actually function. Let's look at this one. This is probably my longest and oldest still functioning one. It's a Sennheiser. It's a 426, MZW 426 if you want to look it up. It's pretty much made out of plastic. It's got a little bit of material inside this grill. The reason I've only got one and not two is because I sat on one. Regular viewers of my channel will know that I'm not the most careful of people, and I sat on the damn thing, and these plastic end rings completely shattered. It wrecked it completely. There's nothing I could do to recover it. Why, you might ask, is there a lump of insulation tape sticking out the end? Well, that's because inside this one is an Audio-Technica 815, which is quite a long shotgun. And I removed the cover off the XLR connector, wrapped a bit of tape around it, and it's just long enough to go in this housing. The housing's fairly simple. Got that screw on the rear. The front does not come off, so the front of these is actually glued in. When I sat on it, that completely, don't ask. And it's got a pistol grip. And this assembly here will slide out. I guess I could show you if you really want to see how it works. Hang on, I'll pull it out of the housing. It probably won't go back, but I'll try. All I've got to do is slide it backwards out of the housing, and there we go. So that's what's inside it. So that's a long shotgun inside. 2 rubber mounts. This particular one, it's got glue on the rear mount and it's got glue on the front mount. So it's been bodged because, again, this one lives in there permanently, and I've actually sort of pretty well fixed it in because the clips broke. So when you consider how much a Sennheiser costs, the fact that I've destroyed one completely and I've got another that's seen better days is a good indication that keeping these things pristine is a bit difficult. In practice, it works fine. With this particular one, what I've done is got a very short XLR cable. So the XLR cable, the one that I've taken the end off inside to shorten it, just comes through here, down here, and that's where I'll connect it to another cable that goes to the recording equipment, whatever that might be. So that's the Sennheiser. Very expensive, and to be honest, it's quite heavy. And of course, with these, you tend to have them perhaps on the end of a boom arm as well. And if you put a hairy cover on it, stick it on the end of a boom, and then it rains, it's incredibly heavy. So, it's nicely made from the point of view of the pistol grip and stuff like that. But this bit is just too problematic for me. So this is retired. It lives with that one Audio-Technica mic inside, and that's how it's going to stay. So what alternatives have we got to using one of those big covers? Well, you can use sort of Rycote style thing, which is fur fabric, but it's actually sitting on top of the type of material that you use as a scouring thing in your sink at home. That very coarse, sort of Scotch Brite-ish looking material. And the basic idea is that it's mimicking one of those big housings, because on a big housing you've got a fur cover on the outside and the fur just wobbles in the wind. So realistically, the little hairs that are on here are taking the energy out of the wind. Take the energy out, it's not so noisy, and then the sound in something like this travels through that very, very open core meshy stuff that's inside, and then it touches the microphone. Now in the big Zeppelin style windshields, there's actually still air inside because the microphone inside is not touching the outside at all. So any air that makes it through the hairy cover, through the fabric that wraps it, so then the air that's inside manages to stop the transmission of the wind from the outside to the inside. Now, on something like this, you just basically stuff the microphone up the end, feed it gently up the inside, and away you go. Right, you know what I said about breaking things? Well, I've broke that. One of the snags of these style of windshields is that if you stuff the microphone in and you miss the inside hole down the middle of that open weave sort of fibery stuff, then if you shove it hard enough, you can actually pull it away from the outside. So in actual fact, you sort of make it very heavy at one end. So this now, at this end, is quite firm. And at this end, there's hardly anything there. Because the 416, I've managed to miss the hole and I've just basically messed it up. And that's one of the snags with these type of softy style windshields. You know, once you've messed them up inside, they're messed up forever. And having them sort of damaged like that is fairly easy. I've actually managed to keep this one pretty good, and I've just gone and messed it up. I guess with a little bit of wiggling. Oh. Yeah. All right. Fixed. So it's in there now, and I think I've redistributed the innards, but that's the snag with things like that. So softy styles are lighter, they're easy to use, they're one piece, you don't have to mess about with the suspension mount on the inside, and all in all they're not bad. There's a little bit on the end here that you can actually manage to stick a pistol grip onto, and away you go. And they're pretty good with varying sizes. I mean, a 416 like this is quite a slim microphone. Some of the other ones are a little bit thicker. Not much, a couple of mils, but they are a bit thicker. So you just need to be a bit more careful with them. Such is life. Let's assume, like the chap who was asking me, he's got a 416 and he wants to stick it in something. He doesn't want to spend a huge amount of money. I mean, maybe he's like me and he knows he's going to damage it. Or maybe it's just probably one project that he needs it for. He's never needed one before. So he doesn't want to spend a huge amount of money. I mean, bearing in mind, if you Google the Sennheiser one, it's a huge amount of money for a windshield. So I spotted on the internet quite a few people who were sort of making similar sorts of gizmos. About 5 years ago, I bought one of these. So this is, I think this one was actually made in India of all places. I didn't know they made this sort of stuff, but I think I saw an advert and I bought this. And if you take off the dead cat, it's a very similar design. This one doesn't rotate and rotate and rotate like the Sennheiser. It's a quarter turn, and then you can pull the end off. And so if you look in the end of that one, same sort of idea. If I wiggle it, there's a microphone inside there. I don't know what this one is. It's black. It could be anything. And that's inside there. And this one is a little bit shorter, so it will fit a 416. No bother with that. That's me. So if I grab the 416, 416 is easily the right length to go in one of these. The only downside to this one is I haven't managed to break the housing, but the rubber band type mounts that the inside sits on perished, and it was just a case of finding some sort of heavy duty elastic bands and conjuring up some new suspension mounts, and that actually works quite well. It's got a decent cover. The cover, it's not particularly long hair, but it does seem to do the job. And I've actually managed to have this one working and used for longer than the Sennheiser one, and I've not broke this. And so this one came from India. I can't remember the exact price, but it would certainly not have been expensive when I bought it. I've never seen them again. I'm sure they're probably available if you look hard, but I've just not seen one. But what I did see was the Chinese one. So what I've got here is a Boer AWS1000. The box it came in makes it feel sort of like it's got hope. So I'll pull it out and you can have a look and see what this one looks like. Well, it's actually quite lightweight. It seems pretty sturdy. It's quite big, diameter wise. It's bigger than the others. So what we got? Pistol grip. Yeah, oh, and it's got a serrated type of clamp. So if you adjust it it stays in one place. There's a microphone stand mount on the bottom, so you could screw it to an ordinary mic stand. A captive 3-pin XLR, that's interesting, that goes up through the handle, and then that disappears to the back. So let's have a look and see what's inside. So the back is a quarter turn to release it. Oh, looks quite nice. There's a little clamp here. I wonder if that's what releases it. That's clever. You can move the position of the pistol grip. It's rather useful. Let's have a look and see if we can get this out. Oh, undo both clamps. It comes out quite easily. So let's have a look. So what I've got is a rail with quite a, it's a nice looking clamp, and this presumably goes on the front. So you move that to adjust it where you want it. Let's just try it and see. We've got the XLR for the end of the mic. Yeah, nice little suspension mount. Let me try and see if I can get a microphone to plug into it. Hang on a minute. Okay, so I've not done this before, so let's see how easy this is. It looks like it just clicks in. I mean, there might be some instructions in the box, but to be honest, I haven't looked at it because I very rarely use instruction books. It might be why I break so many things. But let's have a go. Stick it in there. Oh, that works fine. So we got the microphone on its suspension. Let's just plug that into there. And see how easy it is to go back together. This is scarily easy, and it feels remarkably robust. So there's a little slot in there which you can pop the cable into, and then done. It's working. Do you know what? That's not bad. We've got a little adjustment here. If I tighten that up, I think that'll just stop it slipping off. There's another one at the other end. Do you know what? That's not bad at all. First impressions, pretty good. Oh, I wonder if the front comes off. Yeah, it does. So the front comes off as well. Now there's plenty of space in here for a much longer microphone. So that's useful. So some of the things like the Audio-Technica 815, which is quite long, will fit in here without having to do the silly bit with taking the bit of the XLR off. So that's not bad. What's it feel like? Well, it is slightly squidgeable. Is that a word? Squidgeable. But it feels quite robust. I mean, I'm guessing that if I sit on it, it'll break. It would be foolish to sort of even suggest that it won't. What's it come with? Well, it's got a carrying bag, which is, nice. And then we've got a dead cat. Let's have a look and see how easy this is to go on. Bear with me. It's got a zip. So stuff that in there, pull it over. I'll put it on back to front, of course, but I'm guessing that's not really a problem. No. Went on easy. So what we got? That's okay. It's not the longest, hairiest cover, but this isn't bad at all. Why am I twisting it, you're asking? Well, if these things have an awful lot of mass and they're a little bit heavier, turning them sideways like that is a really good test, because you've actually got the weight of the item trying to resist changes of direction. So on the end of a boom, you know, they get a bit wobbly. This is better. But oddly, there doesn't seem to be much difference in the weight, which leads me to believe that the weight of this is concentrated in the middle where the mount is. Whereas on here, you've got quite a lot of weight at both ends. So the resistance is not quite so much on that. So that's interesting. It doesn't make a noise. That doesn't make a noise. All things considered, we're on a winner. And I've actually bought two of these, one for my friend, and I think I'm going to pop the other one on eBay because I don't really need another. I'm not exactly short of housings, but I expected this to be pretty awful, and it's not. I would probably use that instead of that, and the reason being, if I break it, that thing, with the VAT and the delivery charge that Parcel Force put on me this time, it came to just over 100 quid, I think it was, something like that, with the 20% VAT and the £12 handling charge, which means that if I break it, I've only lost just over 100 quid. And if I break that, I'd probably cry. I cried when the last one broke, and that's just me being stupid. But these things, if you Google them, are not cheap at all. And so they become sort of precious and not disposable. At a pinch, if you use one of these things and you were using it in, say, a moving vehicle, and you dropped it and you broke it, I mean, those things happen. It's just the way, you know, a microphone designed in the way that these are happens to be. You will break them at some point. And so if you can get a modest price one that is decent, as this appears to be, and doesn't break the bank, I think we're on a winner with this one. Do you remember the old Star Trek thing, The Trouble with Tribbles? I think this is probably what I've got here. But I've got a whole clutch of microphone housings. And I think, given the choice, this new one appears to be the one that will do quite nicely, I think. Certainly my mate's going to have no problem with this at all. It'll be perfectly okay for him. I might get some more of these. They're actually quite good, aren't they? See you on the next video. You look after yourselves. Take care.